one of the most lovely things that you can have in recovery. When you see somebody coming in broken, their world's falling apart, they've lost a job, they've maybe lost a home, when there's kids involved, that can have happened too. When people stick to it and it's the same formula for everyone. And like people will say, what should I do? And I say it with a bit of tough love and I go, just do what you're fucking told. I come in here, do what you're told, because you're not a unicorn. It works for everyone. And but the most beautiful thing is when you see somebody's life come back together with that. That's way beyond, us being of service. That's a beautiful feel-good thing that you go, wow, it is, when you see what is possible. And the thing about, I see a running trend with like addicts and alcoholics is they're actually really high achievers. And because they have an obsession mindset, it's so wonderful to see so many people to break the back of this thing and then go on and do amazing things in life.
Welcome to Limitless, the podcast for cycle breakers, change makers, and conscious leaders who are done performing, proving, and pleasing, and are ready to live, lead, and create from deep alignment. I'm your host, Fiona Walsh. Every 2 weeks, I hold space for real soul-expanding conversations with guests who are still in it. They're navigating their biggest fears, shedding old identities, letting go of patterns that no longer serve them, and rising into their limitless potential. Together, we share what it's really like to be human, messy, raw, imperfect, and learning to own every part of ourselves, even the ones we've tried to keep neatly tucked away. We go deep into the work of coming home to yourself, getting out of your head, feeling safe in your body, letting go of old stories, and creating a life that's true to who you really are. Subscribing to Limitless is the best way to make sure you never miss an episode. So hit pause and tap follow or subscribe on your favorite podcast platform. Because this isn't about doing more. It's actually about remembering who you are. And that's what makes you limitless. Welcome to Limitless. Today, I'm joined by Martin Dineen, founder and managing director of MJD Recruitment, which is one of Australia's leading specialist office support recruitment agencies. Martin's built an incredible business over the past decade, one that's known not just for its scale and reputation, but for its deeply positive people-first culture, which he's championed himself from the inside out. But beyond his impressive resume and business that he's built, Martin's story is one of resilience, reinvention, and a commitment to living life from a truer place. We were introduced by his good mate, Charles, who you might remember from an earlier episode this year. And he's also one of my private coaching clients at the moment. Now, these two go way back. Years ago, on a wet, windy morning in South London, Martin called Charles with a bold question. Do you want to move to Australia? I should actually practice my accent. The rest, they say, is history. And they've been building new chapters of life, and they've both built incredible businesses in Sydney ever since. Now, what strikes me most about Martin, though, isn't just his entrepreneurial drive. It's how deeply he's leaned into doing the real inner work through addiction recovery, through learning to let go of stories and secrets, and through opening up to a life that's calmer, more grounded, and far more authentic. Martin, I'm so glad you're here, and I can't wait to explore your story with the Limitless community today.
Thanks, Fiona. Great to be with you.
All right, we jumped straight in. So Martin, could you take us to that point in time where you were like, whoa, everything's got to change, that turning point moment?
Yeah, I think for me that when you mentioned that to me, that it was being in a room by myself where I felt like it was another relapse. I made so many attempts to try to get sober, and I just felt like I couldn't do it. And another relapse where I felt the world was going on without me, that all of my, the good people in my life had given up. There's only so many times people were like, yeah, you got this. And so they were tired, and I was just alone in a room by myself, full of regret and not being able to see any way out whatsoever. And that was that was probably the time where when I came back and I stepped into the doors of recovery again, I went, okay, tell me what to do and I'll do it. I won't try to do things my way anymore. I'm willing to listen and I'm willing to do the work.
And so just joining the dots a little bit on what you said, you were deep in the throes of addiction. Had you attempted to recover a couple of times, and then this was multiple relapses in over a period of time?
So I think probably about a year earlier, I things had gone way out of hand. Things had gone out of hand before that, but at this point, sometimes when you're in it, you don't see how much your world is falling apart more than maybe somebody from the outside might see how much is falling apart. Because as we've talked about, you're just getting that little bit, life is getting a little bit worse every day, and I knew things needed to change, but the obstacle or pain of the work I needed to change was probably, it felt easier to just keep going the way I was. So I would have a moment of, okay, I'm done with this. And then I'd go towards recovery and I would get a few days or I would get a couple of weeks and then I'd forget how bad it was or forget the reasons why I was doing this and slip back into it. But then the slipping back into it, they say addiction is a progressive disease. And every time it was getting worse and worse and worse, my using was getting worse. The consequences of it were getting worse. And it was that last time where, it was my business, I was about to lose it. My mind, I was definitely losing it. And I just wasn't the bounce back and the life that I'd once had where I was trying to get back to was starting to fit further and further in the rearview mirror. So that was, so I had been in and out and I'd done a couple of rehabs a couple of times, but I think the thing that I was missing was the ultimate surrender. The ultimate of going, okay, I'm willing to actually turn the page. I was looking for having bits of recovery and bits of my old life and thinking maybe that I knew better and that I could figure out the formula. But actually, I needed to throw my hands in the air and go, you know what? I don't have all the answers. I need to do what I'm told for a little while.
Yeah. Okay, cool. And so you lay it all down and took the hands off the steering wheel. Did you know in that moment what you desired in your life?
I knew that, I guess I knew more so what I didn't, I knew that I couldn't keep going the way I was and I didn't know what was accessible. I kept, what I think I desired at that time was to get back to my previous life. Mm-hmm. But now in reflection, I think that life led me into that. So actually I needed a whole different view of life and to discover what I like doing. When you're working hard, you're partying hard, you're burning the candle at both ends. It gives really little space to discover actually what you do like. So over the coming months of when I did actually start to get 30 days sober, 60 days sober, 90 days sober, and it started to give me some space and some distance away from the using. That just allowed me to be a little bit more centered and a little bit explore stuff that I'd like and some stuff I did like and some things I didn't. But without that constant noise and being pulled back into addiction all the time, it let some interest flourish. Like I was just telling you before we went on that about my swim this morning. I had never even been in the water in Australia in the first 10 years that I'd been in Australia. Now I'm down to the beach every morning and in the water under the stars. I didn't have access to that.
Yeah, it's interesting, because you're such a high functioning, high performing person. You'd obviously set up a very successful business when you were in, in this period of your life. And sounds like you were playing hard, working hard, and this is like a really common pattern for high achievers. Were there any signs that you missed along the way that you were like, that you now know, oh, I should have, that might have been a clue that things were like heading south a little faster than I thought?
Yeah, I mean, I was definitely a work hard, play hard. But it's funny how the addiction stuff obviously reared its ugly head, and that that's obvious. That can become obvious to you. It can become obvious to the world, right? But actually, you'll say workaholism. It can be exactly the same thing, and it can
100%.
consume you in exactly the same way. But there's a weird, different type of validation that you get from that, and but it can be under it all. It can often be the same behaviors, ignoring life outside of it, doubling down into it, starting to lose some of your connections and relationships because you're so focused on this. So that's probably, there's signs around that stuff that I kind of go, everything for me has, not everything, but like I can get addicted to anything.
Yeah, you've got a highly addictive personality.
Yeah. And sometimes it can be quite lucrative.
Yeah, well, in business,
sometimes it can be totally. And then what comes off that is validation. And then if you're doing that and everyone goes, wow, you're killing it, you're all doing so well. But that's easily to be easily perceived from the outside. But actually what's going on for you internally and what was happening for me is that what I was probably missing was true connection, real authenticity in who I was, and a knowledge of who I was and who I wanted to be. When I first started the business, it was like, okay, I've got this amount of money. It needs to last until I get the first invoice paid, and the panic, right? And then as that was the first milestone, then as the business started to take off, like I had this big goal that I needed to meet. And it was internal, it was all in my head to hit this financial number. And I got to the financial number and with the number of staff that I hoped to get to at that point. And this is a very fast forward version of it. But I think by the time when I got to that, I was like, what now? And the what now, I think, came from having not taken care of myself and a bit of balance and all the other things in life that I had ignored on the quest to what now.
Yeah. Yeah, so you'd really disconnected from other parts of your life to focus on that business goal.
Yeah, and you hit that goal and okay, that's great, but it's probably not given me this big release of, okay, I've made it or whatever. I'm still at my core missing something, and and now I'm looking for a new distraction.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's such a common theme that comes out in these conversations I have on Limitless with high performers who hit the pinnacle or hit the goal. And then they're like, in their own quiet time, they're like, this isn't what I thought it would feel like.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like when the cheering stops and the external applause dies down, you're like, this is lonely and I don't really know what I want to do with myself. And yeah, so what was going on in your inner world at that time for you?
I think maybe, at times it was great, right? But there's that time where you're getting into bed by yourself on Sunday evening, and the thoughts before you go to, those final thoughts before you go to sleep.
The Sunday scaries.
Yeah. I used to work with a girl who used to call it the Sunday night sweats.
We call them the Sunday scaries.
But I think like that feeling before you go to sleep, now for me, that's often like, it sounds really corny, but like it's often gratitude, I go to bed a little bit fulfilled, because I've had a mixture in my day. I give it a good go when I'm at work, but generally I'll have done a bit of exercise. Generally, I might have thrown in a bit of a meditation. I'll have hung out with my dogs. I'll have tried to eat well. I'll have connected with people outside of my work. And if I go into an evening having done all those things, I that feeling going to sleep is more fulfillment.
Oh
You
yeah.
know,
Yes.
which I didn't have access to those feelings previously.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I know from your story that a lot of the work you did in recovery journeyed you way back to your childhood, where where all of us get our programming and conditioning, like it's where our internal operating system gets set up. So can we switch gears and can you tell me a little bit of what was life like for little Martin?
So little Martin being the youngest of 7, very
Yes.
Irish
Good
Catholic.
Irish family.
And I always joke that, like, tell me that you have the same level of enthusiasm 7 times later, and I'll tell you you're a liar.
Totally.
But I think, look, probably early on, I always felt a little bit different, you know, and you know, they used to say at home, "Oh, you'll never see that Martin around the town without a flock of women around him." And I was just like, you know, I'm not a player; they're my besties.
Exactly.
But you know, that was still like mid-90s in Ireland. So you know, Ireland is so progressive now, but there was probably just a level of like ignorance around sexuality when we were growing up. And you know, it was, I knew something was different maybe when I was 4 or 5. And then as I got a little bit older, it, you know, I started to become pretty aware that it was my sexuality. And, you know, now if I see like a 10 or an 11-year-old walking around, and I go, "Oh, when I was that age, I had like that secret that you're holding on to and that you've got a bit of a head full of secrets."
Yeah.
And the fear of that getting out and all of those things. And, you know, I think I carried that through, for different reasons throughout life.
Yeah.
And it was something really that was life-changing for me in recovery, you know, like, because then my secret later was maybe that I party a little bit harder than everyone else, you know, and or that there were things that I would always keep to myself, and I was like, nobody will ever know this. So it was how I present to the world, and then this other version of me that I would never let get out to anyone.
Yeah.
And that's something I remember when I first came into recovery, somebody said to me, you need to, we don't lie in recovery, like you need to leave that behind you. I was like, how ridiculous is that? And then I was like, I get it. That's a lie. But it was probably one of the most freeing things that I've ever had come about, you know? And it was funny because I had to put on my training wheels with that. It was a sponsor that I had in Thailand who, so I did a rehab in Thailand, and a beautiful lady who I met there became my sponsor. She had an equal level of crazy to me, but it seemed inspirational because she was a few years further down the track and really connected well with her.
Love it.
And I was like, okay, you know, sometimes you see somebody who's a few years on and you see that as inspirational, and that maybe I can have access to that. And she said, Martin, you need to drop all the lies. And I was like, well, what if I do lie? And she's like, you just need to tell people, sorry, that was a lie. And the first few times, and it was funny because people in recovery would get it. But outside of recovery, I would say something and then my next sentence would be, oh, sorry, that was a lie. And you just see this like confused, slightly you're crazy look. But it was my training wheel. And now, you know, I don't tell everything to everyone. But I tell everything to someone, you know, and the stuff that matters, you know, because there's a saying in recovery that you're as sick as your secrets, you know, and if you've got,
that's powerful.
yeah. And and it's one that really resonates with me. So generally, if there's something stewing away there, it's a good time for me to pick up the phone, call somebody, and generally once that's out, it takes the power out of it. I always think that these thoughts going around in my head are like those going around in a tumble dryer. But me speaking to somebody is me opening a tumble dryer, folding them and putting them away.
Yeah. When you were in that phase, were your secrets such a part of your identity that you were just like, you were not really differentiating when you'd be speaking to people what was the truth and what was a secret?
So do you mean when I was sober,
Like when
and I was being more...
when you're on autopilot, sort of just in communicate, like when you're talking to people, you said that you were given the advice to stop and be like, oh, actually that wasn't true. Like if you hadn't told the truth. But prior to that, were you aware of like what was truth and what wasn't, or was it all a big blur in your inner world?
I think more so I was always trying to be a chameleon, to fit a situation.
Yeah, to fit in.
And totally. And, that was probably a little, you talked about youth, and I think that was probably a little bit of a coping mechanism.
Oh, yeah.
For being that, like if I was around all the girls, I'd be like one of the girls, which I probably felt more comfortable with. But then if I was in a different environment, I tried to hold myself different. I was conscious. Did I have my legs crossed? Did I like all of those things? And that probably came through with the types of stories I would tell, or the responses that I would give to people, trying to mold and fit in the situation. I don't know. I think these days, some of that, there's a comfort that I feel these days in being more myself, and I love the fact that what I would tell you I did last weekend is the same thing I would tell the guys here in the office that I did last weekend, which is the same thing I tell my partner I did last week. Well, he'd probably do that, but which is just the truth.
Yes.
And and I'm not trying to pretend to be anything else to somebody. Yeah. All of my identity isn't wrapped up in this business anymore. All of my identity isn't wrapped up in my recovery anymore. And it's just like I've got like different facets of it, but there's nothing I'm ashamed of. And which makes me far more comfortable than just going, here's who I am, and we might gel or we might not.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. Something that was coming through for me, like when I've done similar work, because I was massive people pleaser and like total chameleon in every different environment, and prided myself on it. Like I was mastery level at it. And then I realized I was totally self-abandoning myself every single day. But like I used to also, not the secrets, but more like embellish. So like I'd be like sharing something that happened, but put bells and whistles on it for no reason. Yeah. And then like, I remember a few times my partner being like, my partner called me out on it. And I was like, oh, fuck, I do that. Or like, I do that. And I was like, I don't know why I do that. And I had to start checking myself like you did and be like, I remember saying to someone, actually, not all that happened. Hang on, let me just tell you what actually happened. Like, and I did it in real time. And it was a real turning point because I was like, I don't need to make any story bigger than what it is. The story isn't enough as long as I tell it from my heart and authentically.
I remember somebody saying to me that people pleasing is actually manipulation.
Yes, a form of manipulation. Yes.
I was horrified.
How dare you?
I thought that was a really nice person.
I think there's like a difference when it's like conscious manipulation or when you're like trying to do the right thing, but if you actually like look under the hood, it's like, no, that doesn't have the right intention. So
yes, yeah.
And what was it like? What was it like when you came out? Because I know these days when kids, like we have kids in elementary here, primary in Australia, going through transitions who are, you know what I mean? Like it's such a different generation to grow up in. Like, what was it like for you? Did you come out like in the 90s or earlier?
Earlier. No.
I don't know how old you were.
Nah, so probably like my first year of uni.
Yeah, okay.
And I was very, very, so I went to London for a summer. And I
Yeah.
remember going, I'll just be gay in London. And then I go
I
back to
could own it
normal.
here and then I'll go back to normal back home.
Normal.
So
Yeah.
interesting. Wow.
And I went to London for that summer, and then I went back to uni the following year. And there was no putting it back in the box or a closet. But I drove myself crazy because I had all of these friends who I'd made in uni, and I had put on that persona, and I was like, okay, I'm this guy, and blah blah blah. And I think I don't think anyone was that surprised, but when I tried to put myself back into that situation, which I thought I could press rewind on, couldn't, and I had the best summer of like discovering myself.
Yeah.
And made some friends and got comfortable going to a gay club and all of that stuff. And then when I was about 4 or 5 weeks back into uni, I remember leaving a lecture, and no, actually, I had a friend come over to London, and I told her when she was in London. And when we went back, I went into a lecture, I left and found her in the computer room, because we had a computer room at that stage. And I was like, I can't do it. I'm going crazy. I need to tell people. And then, as soon as I did, people were like, oh, we knew.
Yes. Yeah, totally. Was it difficult sharing it with your family?
Not so much. So my brother's gay as well, and he's the next one oldest to me.
Yeah, the 6th.
So if they stopped at 5, they wouldn't have had any. I think they got 2. And actually, when he came out, I remember somebody saying to me, actually, when Jer came out, we thought it'd be you.
Did he come out before you?
Yeah, a couple of years before me.
Yeah,
but they were all very understanding. We'd come from an Irish background, but at the same time, I think before any, we're very accepting, and I think of each other and respect and all of those things that comes before any restriction around religion or anything like that.
Yeah, so you're like family values trumped all religion.
Yeah. Absolutely, yeah. Yeah.
Which is awesome, because I do know of stories where that wasn't the case. Particularly, I grew up Catholic as well. I don't practice anymore, but I know that wasn't always the case. So that's like a credit to your wonderful parents.
Yeah, and you see that it's a frequent story in recovery where you see people come in and they've been thrown out of home early on when they had told people, and the trickle-down knock-on effect ended up in situations and places where they shouldn't have been, and then into recovery.
Yeah. What was it like when you were like going through a recovery this is back in Sydney, like, and having to, I'm guessing, reconnect with people in your life who you had lost contact with? Because you said that some people, if you'd relapsed a few times, people were dropping off and things like that. How was that process for you?
I think, it was a journey, excuse the cliche, but it was, people get sick of hearing that it's different this time.
Yeah.
And, I like the phrase living amends. And I needed to stop talking about it and just do it. And I think that was probably the difference the last time. The last time I came back in, I sat down with my sponsor at the time, and I said, look, I've given it a red hot go my way. I'm going to do it your way. I'll follow your instruction. My best thinking has got me to here. So I'm willing to outsource my thinking for a little while to see if the result is any different. So I said, following his direction. And then, over time, like there was some credibility around what I then started talking about, So if I reach out to somebody and it would just be like a gentle nudge rather than hi, I'm doing great now. It might just be a little, hey, just wanted to send you a little note of gratitude to say I'm really grateful for when you stood by me or the things that you did for me or all of those. You know what? Some of the relationships didn't quite get back there, and that's okay. I had to own my part in it, and somebody else's boundaries are somebody else's boundaries.
Yeah.
But things like family and whatnot, I needed to, they needed to see the work being done rather than believing what I would tell them after, time number 17 of being 5 days sober. I needed to be, I'm actually pretty close with family. So I would, I'm my own worst nightmare when I would relapse, because I would go from like FaceTiming every day while I was walking in from Darlingers. Hey, how's it going? So it's really obvious when I fall off, when my communication would stop.
You go
they
quiet.
Knew exactly what was going on. So me just picking up that communication initially and not promising the world, trying to keep my recovery in the day and trying not to say that I'm all fixed. Because I just needed to do the under the hood work. And then people started to see it rather than me talking about it.
And when you did the under the hood work, was that with different types of therapy, or what types of, modalities did you use to support that part? Because that's the real work.
Yeah. I did a lot of therapy. Sometimes I've done 2 different types of therapies with 2 different therapists in the same week while doing all my recovery stuff. But then the next thing for me is I just needed to learn to live in the world again with a different way of living.
Being you rather than being previous you. Yeah,
exactly, and not having the I think interest in things in life and connection in life that didn't revolve around, my addiction towards the end was dark, right? But even up to that, I remember somebody was asking, what are your hobbies? I was like, I have no idea. I don't have hobbies. I work. When I finish work, I go drinking and it's fun. And then I go for a bacon and egg roll and then I might go out for the whole afternoon the following day. So then if I stayed in for a night, the following morning, I bounce out of bed and I'm like, right, I'm ready to take over the world. And I'd go to the gym, I'd go for a nosy at an open house with Charles while we're walking around and go for a nice breakfast and then get home and it's 11 a.m. and I'm like, what do we do now? So then I might just go out for drinks for the afternoon, So having that self-discovery and having connection and having maybe some phone numbers in my phone where those people weren't people who partied too hard, or maybe didn't
other
party
interests.
at all. So I went from having nobody in my phone who drank and took drugs. Sorry, nobody in my phone who didn't. To pretty much a phone book full of people. But there's this in-between loneliness that I think can stumble a lot of people when you're making that transition from that life to this life. You walk in the door and you're like, I need to change. I need to give this a go, but I also need to close the door on a lot of those relationships. In fact, really all of them. And the time before you build a connection over here can be a really bit of a scary, lonely time. And I think that's the importance of early on smashing out the meetings. And not when you go out drinking, you don't click with every bar and club. You go, oh, that's not really my vibe. It's the same at meetings. And quite often people can go to one meeting and say, oh, that's not for me.
Yeah.
But actually, if you go to enough of them, you'll start to get to know your kind of crew. And then it builds that relationships and you see how other people are living. So all of a sudden you have, between that, the therapy, starting to explore yourself and your interests, that Saturday where you might have been bored at 11 o'clock, actually it's a really fun day or full day. Yeah. And you say, now I kind of go, how did I ever have time to party so hard?
Yeah, and be hungover and stuff. Yeah, I'm like that now. When it's like,
I could not think of anything worse than waking up in the morning with my tongue stuck to the roof of my mouth.
Totally.
The closest thing that happens to now is with pizza.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I hadn't given that much thought until you said that then around like when you lose friends, particularly in the situation you did, because you choosing to walk away from that lifestyle, so choosing to walk away from those friends. What comes up for most people is a lot of grief. Like that's the emotion, which is a really heavy emotion. And if you've got patterning, which is like numbing or disassociating from heavy emotion, your coping mechanism was your drinking and partying and things like that. It's a really complex cycle because you're probably feeling it more than you ever have before, but you don't have any of your tools, which is your unhelpful tools to actually numb or dissociate or feel better.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think that's the beauty about recovery though, because you don't have to do it alone.
Yeah, you've got this beautiful community.
Yeah. And I think doing it alone, I couldn't have done it alone. Like if I didn't do it alone, like to a large degree, I was just a passenger in my recovery. There's an opposite to everything in using in recovery. There's the people in using, there's the people in recovery. There's what do you do on a Friday night? You used to go to a bar or maybe like a druggy place or whatever. There's a meeting to go to. And there's a meeting after the meeting, they say, which is like hanging out with people from recovery. So everything has an opposite, and you just need to embrace into this. And what I think you find over time is that you actually have to make a conscious decision to walk away from this. But equally, if you're serious about your recovery, this just fizzles out.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because you actually don't have anything in common with, you shouldn't have anything in common with that world anymore.
Yeah. And in the programs, in the meetings and stuff that you're a part of, does everyone give back? Like, do you get to a stage where you become the mentor for other people who are joining communities? Or how does that work? Because I feel like it seems like this cool, community.
Yeah.
It's a very purpose-driven.
Yeah, I mean, another saying in it is that you only keep what you have by giving it away. And I think but everyone gives back, right? From the person who's walking in on day one, they're giving back because they are, with the best will in the world. You can have as much love and empathy for that person walking in the door, but you also have a huge amount of identification. And it's a good reminder for you of what life could be like. There was a fork there's a fork in the road when you get sober, and when you go on this journey, life takes off in the way it should. Yeah. Right. And if you go the other way, when I see somebody come in, I don't just compare to when I came in, but at that fork in the road, it would have continued to get worse. So I have to compare it to not only where I was, but even worse than where I was. And for me, that is the possibility that I probably wouldn't be here, but that giving back, I mean, the giving back thing is, it is one of the most lovely things that you can have in recovery. When you see somebody coming in broken, their world's falling apart, they've lost a job, they've maybe lost a home. When there's kids involved, that can have happened too.
Yeah.
But when people stick to it and it's the same formula for everyone. And like people will say, what should I do? And I say it with a bit of tough love and I go, just do what you're fucking told. I come in here, do what you're told because you're not a unicorn.
Yeah.
It works for everyone.
Everyone thinks they're unique, but you're really not.
100%. And but the most beautiful thing is when you see somebody's life come back together with that. That's way beyond us being of service. That's a beautiful feel good thing that you go, wow, it is. When you see what is possible. And the thing about I see a running trend with like addicts and alcoholics is they're actually really high achievers, and because they have an obsession mindset, so it's so wonderful to see so many people to break the back of this thing and then go on and do amazing things in life.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. Like a lot of the people I coach are very high achievers as well. And I would say have obsessive traits in their personality or even addictive traits. And one of the interesting things, and I guess it ties into like you having more interest in hobbies and connections now, is like being really aware of your energy levels in your body, because people who are high achievers tend to be very high energy. And if you're not intentionally exerting energy every day, like you swimming, running before work and things like that, you end up building up. Do you know what I mean? And then if you don't have the right hobbies or the ways to exert that energy, it can get channeled into the wrong ways.
Totally. I often think of the way I used to operate was running 100-meter sprint and falling down at the end.
Blowing up.
Yep. Yeah. Now I'm all about the marathon.
Mm-hmm.
Like I don't generally do much work at the weekends.
Yep.
Yeah, I work when I'm here. I'm super into it and super busy.
Yep.
But do I work very late evenings? No. And it's more of a well-rounded feeling of I can give stuff a good go, but I want to be in it for the long haul, and I want to continue enjoying it. I think a big red flag is when going so hard that the things I generally love doing start to become a chore.
Yeah, that's interesting. That's a good sign for people to be aware of. When you don't have that joy, or that's awesome. What's been one of the biggest surprises for you since you've like made it through your recovery and you've chosen this more like connected and calm and grounded life?
What have been one of the biggest surprises?
Could be long weekends. It could be a good surprise.
How long weekends can be.
Yeah.
How much you can fit into life.
Yeah.
But probably some of the stuff around, actually the biggest surprise that I've had is how much I can enjoy quiet time, because I never had it. Like I was always, I think I had real strong codependency issues. Like I always had to be around other people. Even in the depths of addiction, I was a plague to people. And now I can, and probably an extension of that surprise is that discovering that although I present more extrovert, that I've got a really strong introvert part to me as well.
Interesting. So a very deep, reflective.
Yeah. And I love going to a social event for anything up to 2 hours.
Yeah.
And then I am out. Yeah, totally. It's like Jen, who runs our Queensland office. She invited me over for a dinner one night, and I said, "What time will I be over?" And she said 6 o'clock. And I'm like, "Okay, great, can't wait. See you from 6 till 8." And
love it.
And then at 8 o'clock, I'm like, "Bye, I'm out."
Are you like a highly empathic person as well?
Look, I mean, I think so. Like I think especially in people who who I see maybe who've had similar struggles, I I can really see and feel that. And if there's, and sometimes I have to put myself back and not become a lecturer,
Yeah.
and all you need to do is this,
Yeah.
because I also need to,
Fix that comes
yeah,
out.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And, sometimes it's okay to just listen or
Yeah.
to be there for somebody. But I do struggle sometimes, especially when I see people who are on that similar relapse in and out kind of thing. Sometimes I just want to share because it's a few years later for me now, right? So it's easy for me to forget how that can be. Sometimes I just want to shake them and go, all you have to do is dot, dot, dot. Um, but there is another saying in recovery that says you can carry the message, not the addict, and you can't do somebody else's recovery for them. They need to be ready. They need to have had that moment where I spoke to you about how, life can just be getting 1% worse every day. But the pain of staying the same needs to be stronger than the pain of change. And at that point, generally people go, okay, now I do want guidance, or I do want a bit of a lecture, or I do want, just give me, with that 1% getting worse, it only gets 1% better every day too, once you change. It's not fixed overnight.
Yeah, it's slow either way.
Totally. And I always thought that I just needed one good night's sleep and I'd be back to normal. Mm-hmm. So when it gets 1% better, it can feel like such a big cliff or such a big mountain to climb.
Yeah.
That it takes a lot of right decisions to get there.
Yeah.
But that's where I think having people who've gone before you is really helpful.
Yeah. Yeah. One of my mentors, I was getting impatient when I was doing some work on myself and I was like saying it's not happening fast enough and da 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 da, and the cycle keeps coming back. And they were like, this journey, it's like turning around a cruise ship. Like you need to turn around a cruise ship. You're not just like, you know what I mean? It's like, it's going to take time. This is a big ship to turn around. So I was like, oh God, all right. So
and because we land where we are due to things like addiction, it can be, you want an immediate fix.
Well, the instant gratification is part of what drives it.
Totally.
Yeah, 100%.
And if it doesn't fix things straight away, you're like, oh, well, it doesn't work for me.
Yeah.
And that's one of the sad things I see, that I see so many people come in and you never see them again. Like the rate of people who stick around is maybe like 5%, which is sad because you know how life could be.
Yeah. 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 And there's all these people there with open arms welcoming you who can show you the way. But as you started with at the very start of this episode, you need to be in a position where you're like, I can't do this anymore. Like I'm out of ideas. I'm going to hand it over to someone else or something bigger than me.
Absolutely. And that's one of the key things in recovery. For me, that handing it over was starting to do the things that I should do rather than what I wanted to do. Because what I want to do is so easy. It's so easy to follow that way. And but again, what I want to do was what landed me sitting in church basements and semicircles talking about what a mess my life was. Yeah,
exactly. All right, before we get into some rapid fire questions, I ask one final question, Martin. So transformation happens in small incremental steps, as you said, 1%, 1%, gradual. It's in these micro moments that we really unlock long-lasting change and a deeper access to ourselves. What's one small step or action that people listening today could take to unlock their limitless potential?
I think simply, for me, it would have been like just trying something else and trying a different path. The stuff that feel like just doing the do rather than thinking about it or talking about it. Taking that first step of action rather than rather than assuming it won't work. Give something a crack, and then at least it's a similar thing. Like I don't know if this is the best analogy for it, but a phone call that you don't feel like making. What I try to do these days is I just dial the number and put the phone to my hand. So that's the action, rather than the thinking about it. Let your hands do the action, and the same as whatever that step entails. Just do the step and let your thinking come second. The same as when I said about getting up in the morning and stuff. When I first started doing morning stuff, getting down to the beach and whatnot, I would move my legs first before I had a chance to think about it.
Well, because our brain doesn't want us to change. Its job is to keep us safe. So it's going to be like, oh, don't do the thing, Martin. Do not make that phone call. Go and have a coffee.
Tying it in with I was going to say, tying it in with a reward. I would move my legs towards the coffee machine before now I try to hold off for the coffee for the first hour. But at the start, I used to move my legs towards the coffee machine. So I get a bit of a dopamine kick when I press the button on the coffee machine.
Oh my God, I love it. It's very relatable. All right, some rapid fire questions. What's the most uncharted or chaotic thing you ever done, and would you do it again?
The most chaotic thing I've ever done. So definitely no. So would I do it again? But I've learned lots of lessons from them, and before things went terribly wrong, because we've talked about a lot of serious stuff. Like I went out in Sydney one night, and we had a great night out and whatnot. And the following day it came to, and we were in Melbourne. And I was like, how the hell did that happen? That was before everything went terribly wrong.
Wheels fell off, yeah.
Would I do that again? No possible chance. But again, as much as things ended really bad, there was a lot of fun times, and I met some of my best friends in before it went terribly wrong.
Yeah.
Because they and I was probably always the hardest partier amongst those.
Yes, push the limits.
Now we catch up. Half of them don't even drink anymore.
Yeah.
Because they've just got over it.
Yeah, totally. I always think as well, though, we're the sum of our experiences. And so even if the hardest things that we've been through, they've helped us get to where we are today. So I don't tend to have any regrets for even the crazy, stupid things I did in my 20s as well. So.
Oh, you know what? It's a weird thing. And I remember when I first got sober, I was like, if I'm giving this a proper crack, I want to get life to a point where I'm grateful for my addiction. And now I'm grateful for it all the time, because had I not been through that, there is no possible chance that I would have access to the way I live life now.
Wow. That's so extraordinary. I love that so much. Yeah. Okay. What's one truth you live by today that would have terrified your younger self?
One truth I live by today is that I'm incredibly boring, and I love it. Like I am the boring person today that I would have run a mile from, in my 20s or in my early 30s, and I am here for it. Like I go to bed at 8:30. I get up super early. I exercise at the weekends. I sit on a rock by the beach watching the waves come in and feel fulfillment from it. Like it's me, and I don't apologize for it.
Solidarity, my friend, solidarity. Okay. What's one thing that you're deeply grateful for right now?
Deeply grateful for right now is I guess like something I'm grateful for right now. I'm trying lots of different things, right? And to realize that like there's no end point, right? Obviously there'll be an end point one day, but we're never too old to try new things. We're never too I used to always think, I'm exploring a few things outside of my day-to-day business at the moment. And you can have fun with things. You can try different things. You don't need to lock into anything to be a forever thing. And that stuff I'm grateful for, and I'm trying, and it's something I'm trying with new people. I'm working on a platform at the moment that's linked to sobriety, which I would talk to you about another time. But trying something completely different and building up a different bit of a skill set, hearing a new lingo, it's like got my creative vibe going again. And I'm really like grateful to be in a bit of that world.
Yeah, that's cool. I love that. I can hear it in your voice as well. There's so much energy and passion behind it. That's awesome. Okay, when you hear the word limitless, the name of this podcast, what are 3 words or feelings that are evoked for you?
Limitless. I think anything is possible. You know, like for the only limits that we put on are on ourselves. You know, and just exploring. And what I said about taking steps in a different direction, you never know where it can land. You know, and the only caps that we put on are things like maybe some of that childhood stuff, but testing it and being able to like dip your toe a little bit further than maybe what you would have thought you could have, and seeing what's beyond that.
Yes.
You know, I think that can open up maybe a whole new Narnia.
Oh, yeah. And do it like in a playful way, not in a like serious, if I get it wrong, everything's going to blow up and I might die. You know, like don't catastrophize it. Like if it fucks up, then have a laugh at that it didn't go to plan and be fine with it. Yeah.
It's very few doors that we walk through that you can't walk back out of.
100%.
You know?
Yeah.
So if you walk through something and it fails, like I'm so past the thing of being caught up in any shame around failure or anything like that. It's like, you know what, give something a go and you get the opportunity to, you know, that's the other thing I'd probably say about Limitless. Like, be the master of your own destiny. Do you know what I mean? Like, and you can do that by that self of giving stuff a crack. Yeah.
Yeah. I read a quote the other day. I'm going to butcher it, but it was something about you're only failing if you failed to try to do the thing.
Totally. Yeah.
You're better off failing and learning from it and than not doing it at all, because then you just live a life of what ifs and resentments.
Yeah, 100%. You know, one day we'll be lying on that bed going, did we give it a good crack? And I just want to be able to say yes.
Totally. Yeah. And finally, if you're feeling a bit flat and you want to lift your mood or vibration, what is a song that you like to put on?
Okay, so every oh my God, what's it called now? It's gone out of my mouth. Oh, okay. So every morning I come in here, I try to come in about an hour and 15 minutes before everyone else. I put my headphones in.
Yep.
And Sia Unstoppable gets me going first thing.
Okay. One of my favorite songs. I use it all the time with my social media stuff. So, okay, I'll have to, when we promo this, we will have that playing.
I wish I had something more inspiring or what to say, but like, that's the one that and it's funny, one of my friends just started her own business. And I was telling her about this. I was like, get your headphones in, put Sia Unstoppable on in the morning and power through your first hour.
It's true. Like when I was starting my business, it was one of my anthems when I was like spiraling with self-doubt of like, this isn't going to work. And who are you to do this? And all the stories as you would know fully well. And you can pump Sia and you're like, all right, let's go.
We're good.
Well, Martin, it's been such a delight speaking to you today. And thank you for sharing such an incredible story and just being so honest and vulnerable and raw with us. I know that so many people will have so many takeaways and learnings from what you shared. So thank you for coming on Limitless today.
No, pleasure, Fiona. Thanks. Great to be with you.
Thank you. Thank you for tuning in to Limitless. If you enjoyed today's episode and love hearing the stories of courageous cycle breakers, I'd be grateful if you could leave a review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. Your feedback not only helps others discover the show, but it also amplifies our mission to unlock emotional freedom and true potential. Every review makes a difference in helping more people embrace their limitless life.